A Frenchman playing a Scottish clansman, the most famous Scotsman alive playing a Spanish Egyptian who resides in Japan, an American playing a Russian, directed by an Australian music video director with a soundtrack from a band fronted by a guy from Zanzibar. And when these immortals kill each other, lightning explodes out of their bodies in something called the Quickening. Ladies and gentlemen, this film makes absolutely no sense. And yet somehow, against all logic, it works. This is Highlander, and welcome to Get to the Cheddar.
Here we belong.
Yeah, this is a great one for me because, as you mentioned in the beginning, I think it shows the craziness that is filmmaking at times and how a film ever gets made. You just alluded to the fact of so many people into that melting pot. Well, add to that a screenwriter that was still, according to legend, at college, and it was part of his work that he had to do. And basically, his professors and the people reading it went, "Wow, this is really good." And then the word started to travel, and the two producers, notorious producers for being very skin thin and very hard to work with, picked it up, saw it, said, "Yeah, we like it." Went to him and said, "Look, we're going to pay you a minuscule fee that will only increase if the budget for the film increases. We're going to be fair. If the budget for the film increases, we'll increase your fee." Then they started looking around for major actors to work on it. Didn't get much success. Then everything changed overnight. The moment, as you said, the world's most famous Scotsman went, "I'll give you a week." The moment they got that week from Connery, it was all stations go for a far bigger movie than was originally planned.
Mm.
Christopher Lambert, the Frenchman, was hot from Subway, a French movie that was making waves in Europe, and he was touted then as a heartthrob on all the French magazines, young up and comer, very similar looking Subway in certain scenes. Crazy little movie, lovely little movie. He came on board because of Sean Connery, and the most interesting one of all, everybody's favourite character in the film, the Kurgan. So many people
Mm.
turned it down. Nobody was interested, and eventually Clancy was suggested. And to this day, Clancy Brown will still tell you, I've seen numerous interviews with him where he says he was treated like crap on the movie. He was treated like an extra, never got residual, still not being paid a fair whack to this day. But he does credit it with the movie that everybody went, "This guy's great. Who is this guy?" And as we know now, one of our favourite go-to supporting actors in the world now. I mean, anything Clancy's in, he elevates. But
Mm.
his experience on this movie was taken for granted. No one cared. It was almost like you're lucky to be on this movie. And yet, as you alluded to, we look at a lot of films in this series that we do get to the cheddar, and a lot of them go straight to DVD. A lot of them we know before we start are laughable. The
Mm.
Australian director, Russell Mulcahy, as you said, started off in music videos, but you and I have both seen his debut movie, which is a wonderful little Jaws-style Australian B movie called Razorback.
Mm.
And one of the most remarkable things about Razorback is how much he did with such a small budget. And you could tell his music video background, the way he lights things, the way he frames things. So the one thing I will say that Highlander's got going for it is Mulcahy makes it look like a big budget movie. He's good with his camera. He's good with the way he transitions. And the final thing it's got going for it is now when you look at it, how on earth did they get Queen for the soundtrack? Because if you and I were to try and make a movie in 2026 and ask for the rights to one Queen track, we'd
Mm.
be having to sell a kidney. Queen is the soundtrack to this movie. And so,
Mm.
um, out of all this quagmire comes a film that has no right to be anywhere near as talked about, anywhere near as cult or as loved as it is today.
I mean, the thing is, I mean, if you've ever wondered what happens when an immortal sword fights meets stadium rock, the answer is Princes of the Universe. You know, the soundtrack is epic throughout. I mean, we're going to get on to some of these because Who Wants to Live Forever is one of the biggest beats of the film, and
Mm.
you know, is literally one of the most emotionally shattering movies in any 80s movie. Queen had only done, so they only did 3 soundtracks in the 80s. They did Flash, which, that was early 80s. And Flash, although the soundtrack's great, it's just Flash. I mean, you can count the hero, but
Yeah.
really it's just one song. And then they also did in this same year in 86, which is also on the Kind of Magic soundtrack, which is basically the Highlander soundtrack, is One Vision, which was on Iron Eagle, which was also released in 1986. And that's the only other song they did. So yeah, I mean, the only thing I can put it down to is that Russell Mulcahy was directing music videos. He'd been doing Duran Duran and stuff before this. So, and there are elements of this film that do look like the music video from Rio, but again, we'll get onto
Mm.
that in a little while. Russell Mulcahy actually changed the way films were edited and stuff because he used some music video stylings in the editing which had never been seen in movies. And then movies took it. And there are points in this film where it does feel you are just watching a music video, especially in the montage sequence. You just feel like you're watching a
Mm.
music video. But that doesn't denigrate the film at all. It actually elevates it, like you said. I mean, there's lots of, and, you're talking about Clancy Brown, the Kurgan, we have to talk about, he is probably the best thing in this film.
Yeah.
The Kurgan is one of the most scary screen villains of the 80s, if not beyond. He's definitely up there. I mean, he's up there with Darth Vader and stuff. I mean, the Kurgan isn't subtle at all. That's what I think works. He's not subtle. I mean, he's like if Conan the Barbarian had a drinking buddy, that would be him. Conan would turn up with a
Or
Kurgan with
Conan
him.
had a drinking problem. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. He would
And
turn into the
a
Kurgan.
lot of a lot of Clancy's stuff was improvised because,
Mm,
that lack of respect gave him a certain freedom, and he improvised a lot of stuff, in the church especially, which for me
yeah.
is one of the most shocking elements because it's still, we still have this thing about churches, and there was nuns in there was priests, there was the choir boys, and he's licking hands, he's doing the with his tongue, and it's you're left feeling uncomfortable with the way he does it so blandly. It's just like I don't care.
I'm a worm.
And that line, it's better to burn out than fade away, one of the most famous lines in the film, he made up on the spot as he decides to almost like Fred Astaire out of the church when he's doing that sort of like little shuffle out of the church and saying goodbye to the priests and the nuns. He does that spin and goes, it's better to burn up than fade away. And it was totally Clancy. He's marvelous.
Just so everybody knows, now, usually how we do get to the cheddar is that we will take the film from the beginning and we'll work through it. We'll just work through the film and explain what happens and do all this. Now, Highlander is well, it's downright bonkers. There's no other way to put it. So it's not easy to explain this film in its running order because it jumps about a lot. We jump between the Scottish Highlands, we jump between modern day New York, we then bump into a couple of time eras. What we are going to do this time for you, beloved watchers, and don't forget to subscribe and like and comment all down the bottom and all that jazz. We are going to break this down into a few sections. So we're going to talk about the Scottish elements first, the Highlands. And then we're going to go to New York to the modern day part of the story, but it will all make sense. And you should have watched the film by now. I mean, it's 40 years old. So
Yeah.
if you haven't watched it, really, what have you been doing? If you're watching it to let us explain to you, to help you like a Cliff's Note or something, you're in the wrong place. Right. Anyway, so let's kick back. So the film opens, and I'm just going to break what I just said. The film opens at a wrestling match. So I know I said I was going to explain the Scottish bit, but we're starting here. So yes, the film opens a wrestling match. And Connor MacLeod is and it's the fabulous Freebirds, by the way, for those Terry Gordy and Michael Hayes. And so, just in case, he's in a stadium, which in the 80s was not very common for this type of wrestling. Wrestling was usually in small halls. Anyway, they're in a stadium. Now he's sitting up on the balcony, completely disinterested. And then his eye, there's like this salient light that goes on his eyes, and then he realizes there's someone in the building, and he goes running off to find them. Now, what it actually does, it triggers a flashback, and this is how we get to the Highlands. So, the film opens with a wrestling match, and then all of a sudden you're in the Highlands in Scotland, and it doesn't explain itself. There's no like timestamps at the bottom that says modern day and the high. It just goes to the in a really good edit actually, where it just sort of fades through.
Mm.
into the Highlands. So we are in 1536 in the Scottish Highlands. And it opens with Connor MacLeod and his clan riding into battle in what looks like a Duran Duran Wild Boys music video edit, because this is no Braveheart. You've got some dudes in blue up on the hill, which are the MacLeods, and you've got some dudes in red up on the big hill. I mean, they've got the higher ground to begin with, so this is not going to end well. And the mysterious Kurgan is sitting there on his horse, looking pretty scary with his skull helmet thing, which is really cool, and his huge broadsword. And he just says to these guys, he goes, "You know the plan. Don't kill the one called Connor." Now, this is all very well and good. I mean, how do all these dudes know who Connor MacLeod is? This is his first battle. He even
He's the
says,
one wearing the kilt.
yeah, it's like he's nervous because it's his first battle. So they arguably will have never met him before. And half of them look like they've just rolled out of a bar anyway. So anyway, yeah, so this great big battle ensues, and away we go. There's, swords flying everywhere and people getting stabbed up. And Connor's standing there going, "No one will fight me," while all his clansmen are being killed. Now, no one wants to fight him, but he doesn't want to go and help his mates either. They're all standing getting chopped up and stuff, and he's just like, "Why doesn't anybody fight me?" He's like, "Get over there. Your mate's about it." Oh no, he's dead. It's just like one of them gets his face shoved in the water, and crazy, crazy. I was just like, "Go and help them." Anyway, the Kurgan comes through the crowd and stabs him straight through the stomach, and he dies. Well, he's about to lose his head because the immortal, "There can only be one" line comes out for the first time.
There can be only one. Another time, MacLeod!
And his brothers actually step in to stop him, and the Kurgan gets shooed away. I mean, why the Kurgan just didn't kill everybody? Because if he can't die, theoretically, he could have killed all of them and then gone back for Connor and just chopped his head off. I don't know why he ran away. Doesn't make any sense, but none of this film makes any sense, so it doesn't really matter, does it? It would be a very short film if he died in the first 5 minutes. So
But
yeah, that
this is
would be
the
a bit
thing; it
shit.
brings in the sort of like elements of witchcraft and everything. Because as
Mm,
we know, Connor survives, but to his clan, that is like
yeah.
it's got to be witchcraft. He's got to be demon. He's got to be a devil, and he's got to be cast out. And one thing I'd like to say, Matt, although as you rightly said, you can see Russell's pop video background in the way he stages things, but for a film of that budget, the locations, the
Mm,
set dressing, the outfits and everything, it's fantastic. I mean, I've got to be honest, the Highlander parts of the movie are far and away my most favourite. I mean, the way everything's set up, even down to the wigs and the outfits and everything. And we've got to mention the immortal. You talk about the Immortals, Mr. James Cosmo, who's obviously in it as well. He's in everything that's Scottish, anywhere and everywhere, playing his uncle, the one that actually helps him get away, which I know you'll come back to, is the fact that
mm.
everything about this, when I watched this, I could have quite happily watched a Highlander that was just set in that time frame in the Highlands and the Kurgan looking to hunt him down. And this version of the Kurgan, I don't know about you, but I feel this version of the Kurgan, at the very first battle, he gets better later in the Highland section,
Mm.
is the most boring part of the Kurgan that we
Yeah,
see, isn't it? You look at
yeah,
him and you think, oh, this is going to be your stereotypical, let me kill him sort of villain, you know.
yeah.
But it doesn't. And I'll let you pick up because obviously he's on his deathbed. His girlfriend is mortified and he doesn't die.
Now, the girlfriend, here's the interesting bit. I mean, 5 minutes before the battle, she's wanting to have his baby. She's chasing down the road with roses to give him and all this stuff, right? He dies. She's crying. Fair enough. That's kind of what would happen. And as you've just said, he doesn't die. He wakes up because he's an immortal. I have to point out, actually, Lambert's performance here is really underrated because, sure, his accent's all over the place, and I don't think he actually does Scottish any part of the accent.
He does a couple of
But
words, I think.
yeah,
There's
maybe,
a
yeah.
burr to a few words.
Yeah, but the accent, sorry, not the accent, but the confusion and fear all over his face when he realizes he can't die is really well acted. He's like proper like or maybe he's just turned up on set and nobody's given him a script. One of the two. They just said do what you want. And but yeah, so now his own people turn on him. He goes in the bar. His cousins turn on him. The woman who wanted to have his babies 5 minutes ago is now calling him the Satan and all this and trying to get everybody to burn him at the stake and whatever. So he gets banished from his village. He's put in like stocks, and they're all punching him. And as you said, his other cousin saves him and gets him out of the thing. I mean, now this is genuinely dark for what people think is going to be a fun '80s action film. I mean, it's pretty brutal opening, and. So anyway, so he's wandering out the village, and Christopher Lambert's learned his English phonetically for 2 years from Greystoke. So his Highlands dialect was obviously lesson two. He didn't quite finish the course, which is why it's so odd. So yeah, so he's struggling with his accent. He's struggling with walking, and he wanders off, and he goes off into the Highlands wherever he goes. The very next shot is him sitting on the side of it, being a bit sulky with his arms folded. How did he get out of these stops? Because there's
Well,
no way to
if we're
unlock
being
himself. There's
generous,
no one
Matt,
to.
if we're being
I
generous,
want to know.
I think we've got to say it's probably because he meets Heather, who is going to be the love of his life, and they go in this abandoned little castle without a roof, and we
Well,
learn another bit
hang on, no,
about.
right. Hang on. The suggestion is they built the castle because he built the house next to it. So the suggestion, I mean, that's why it's so wonky, that castle. But I'm just like, so he just in 5 years randomly built a tower with no
I
roof.
forgot the roof.
It's got it's
Yeah.
got no roof. The stairs go nowhere. So it's kind of it's like he's put the cottage down the side when it should have been on the top, but it's down here and he couldn't lift it, obviously. But Blossom, as he keeps calling Heather, Blossom in his weird, it's weird Scott. That's about the only word that sounds Scottish when he says it. It was Blossom and Heather. Heather.
And we get the sort of, I mean, the two of them in a very short period of time do sell, I feel, the romance. They do sell
Hmm,
the genuine nature. And then, of course, we get the ace in the hole. We get the arrival of Ramirez. And it's
the
a great
peacock.
arrival, isn't it? Dressed up like the big peacock on this wonderful white stallion. And for me, some of the most fun moments, because Ramirez is used for two things. He's used to train, because we saw when he fought the Kurgan, it was one shot. Connor raises his sword and the Kurgan stabs him. He doesn't even get a shot in. So Ramirez is there for two reasons. Lots of exposition in the week they've given him, and to train Connor to be a swordsman on a level with Ramirez, who is hinted at possibly the only one that is the level of the Kurgan. And then now, for some reason, rather than take a wonderful opportunity to cut the head off another guy that's crap, he teaches him. And so he also explains they can't have children. They're there for this greater purpose. There's the gathering. So we've got to remember the quickening. We've got to remember the gathering. But what I will say is, while this is all happening, and I know this is the bit that you say is very Duran Duran, and it's the montage. It is fun on the
Hmm.
boat. The under When he realizes that he can't die underwater and he's breathing the bubbles, it's fun. It really is a fun moment. Connery's got a huge wage, so he's obviously having great fun thinking, I've got this for a week, that's all I'm here for. And everybody knows Connery. He
Hmm.
never ever goes outside his contract. If you don't do it in the week, you're not getting him back. He's a stickler for contracts and keeping your word. So
Yeah.
he's having fun in this week. And I think that whole sequence from the moment Connery arrives is just pure 80s movie fun.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I mean, like you said, as soon as he turns up, the entire film shifts gear. And like you said, why didn't he just chop his head off to begin with? Because it just would have saved him a lot. He wouldn't even have to have a big, drawn out fight. He just chopped his head off.
Exactly.
But also, he's in the middle of an intimate moment with his beloved, and he just, Ramirez just appears. It's just like,
On this
didn't you
big
hear the
horse.
horses? Yeah, didn't you hear the horses' hooves?
Can you
Anyway,
imagine that horse
yeah,
tiptoeing up
yeah.
with the hooves?
But yeah, it just absolutely everything about every. I'm going to keep saying this word. Everything about this film is bonkers, and this is no more bonkers than anything else in the film. And like you said, he explains, they keep fighting until there's only a few left, the semi-finals, as it were, and then there's the gathering. I mean, the other thing I do question is who knows the exact number of them? Is there a
Mm.
list somewhere that goes right? These are the ones
Well,
that
you do
how the
see. I know we're going through the Highland area, but you
yeah.
do see in the New York thing. Connor had a little notebook with names
Oh,
of
I
the ones
didn't
that
pick that
he'd
up.
killed.
Ah, okay.
Um, but so Ramirez lets them also know they can't have children, which is
Yeah,
devastating for Heather. They can't have
yeah.
children. They can't be killed anyway, except by being beheaded by another
Losing the head.
immortal. Um, and then, so we have this wonderful training sequence, the underwater scenes, the fish falling out of
Mm,
his kill,
mm.
and eventually, just like we'll have with the Rocky movies, you have the moment on these wonderful, incredible cliffs with the lightning, and Connor is now Ramirez's equal.
Well, he
And
actually
just
betters him
when
on a couple of occasions because
that's
he
right,
loses
and the
the sword,
sword,
and
yeah,
that's
I
great.
mean,
There's that
that's
shot
a hell of a
of
search, isn't it, eh?
yeah, Connery
That
looking over,
sword
going,
goes,
"Well, I ain't going to get that."
but he does, someone does, because
Someone
it
does, yeah.
arrives back this.
I mean, I suppose if
And
you fall
then,
off the mountain into the water truck, you're not going to die, are you? Because unless your head comes off on the way down. But yeah,
and then we
it
get
just
the
looks like
interlude where
Connery's
he's
really
sort,
annoyed on the helicopter shot. It just looks like Connery's really annoyed. Like,
yeah, he
oh
looks
man,
over, then he goes,
we're gonna do it again, and I've dropped the sword. So yeah, no,
and then we
that
get
made
this
me
lovely
chuckle.
little interlude where he's part of the family, don't we?
Yeah,
And then
lovely.
my actual favourite battle is when Connor's, we don't know where Connor is, but he's away. Ramirez is there
Right,
with
okay,
Heather.
yeah, you're skipping ahead a little bit. Hang on, hold that thought because I was actually going to say the same thing. Right, so before all this happens, they go into town. They go into town because they're now all matey, and I mean, Sean Connery is born and raised in Edinburgh, right? They cast him as one Sanchez Villalobos Ramirez, a 2,437-year-old Egyptian. We know this because he tells us, um, an old Egyptian with a Spanish name who was trained in Japan and gets a sword from one of his ex-lovers of dad's. He makes him this super duper sword, so super duper that Connor gives up on his sword later in the film and takes his sword when he finds it. Um, and so, yeah, so 2,430-year-old Egyptian with a Spanish name who'd been living in Japan, and somehow he's still the most believable thing in this film, even though he's doing a Scottish accent. But yeah, so yeah, there's this bit in it, and I wanted to pick up on this. There's this bit in it where Heather goes off to go shopping, and the two of them are having this conversation, and these three little kids come running along into Heather, and she goes, "Oh, get away with you,
Oh, you little devil. Go on.
One of them runs up to her like that and just grabs her in the chest. It's just like Bob. Because I had to rewind it and go, did he actually do it? And he does. He grabbed that, and it's almost like it's an offcut of something that shouldn't happen. She's, oh, get away! I was shocked. I tell you what, sexual harassment was alive and well, my friend,
But
back
when
in the
you mentioned that,
1500s.
I'm glad you brought it back to that, because also that scene is also vital for Ramirez telling him, dump her now. Your
Yeah,
life's immortal. She's going to die. I've had three great loves in my life, and I've lost them all. Don't go through what I go through. Loser. Just get rid of her. And Connor says, I can't.
but yeah. So anyway, so we're getting back to the castle, like you were saying. So Connery and Heather. So I shouldn't call him Connery. Ramirez and Heather are having dinner. Now, this is like you said. Where is Connor? It's night time, right?
Mm.
Where there's absolutely no suggestion he's out hunting. He's gone for a jog. He's gone to the pub. We don't know where he is. It's never mentioned where he goes. And then it all goes down because our family friendly Kurgan turns up looking for Connor.
Kurgan. Ramirez.
Now, the most ridiculous sword fight, although I think you quite like this one, the most ridiculous sword fight in the film. They're fighting up the stairs to no roof. The lightning's coming down and all this and all that. And the castle just suddenly just starts falling apart because obviously Connor didn't do a very good job with his cement. I know they didn't have cement back then,
He
but it
comes
was all
through,
moss.
Matt, he
Yeah.
comes through the wall like Fred Gwynn from the Munsters, doesn't he? He goes, I'm
Yeah.
through the wall, and where's
Or the
Connor?
shock, or the WCW Shockmaster incident where he fell through the wall. Yeah.
A shot!
I told you.
Oh, God.
But
So
I
yeah,
love the
he's
atmosphere, Matt. The thing
mm,
about this one, I know you're right, but for me, it's got vibes of the 1930s Frankenstein and Bride of Frankenstein. We know with those
mm,
staircases
yeah,
and
yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
lighting and the lightning, and every time you know they've got really hard swords because every time it hits a brick, as you said, they start falling apart. Huge parts crumble, which either means Connor was a crap builder or these swords are really, really powerful. But in terms of drama, because in such a short period of time, the charisma that is Sean Connery, you get to like him, you get to know him.
Mm,
He's Connor's mentor, and in for me, in terms of the emotion and what it's meant to do, forget the actual. Because I will say this now, I think the sword play throughout the whole
yeah.
film is very much Shakespeare stage play, theatre sword players where stroke one, stroke two, stroke three.
Mm,
You know, they had whole theatre schools where they would train sword play, and it was for the likes of the old classics, and they would be shown on stage with other 80s films, and especially later, and especially like the Hong Kong and the Japanese films, the swordplay is so subpar in comparison. It really is one, two, three, parry, two, three. But the way Russell does it with the lightning, the walls falling, the size difference, as you said, the ridiculousness of deciding to fight on these little steps going up, but it all comes together. It still manages a great dramatic impact for me.
mm. Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, the bit where, spoiler alert, Connery dies. This is where Highlander stops being a cult curiosity and becomes a proper film. He does him on the top of the stairs, and I'm going to get onto the weirdness of the quickening shortly because every time someone dies, something different happens. And there's meant to be rules around the quickening, but sometimes they fly up in the air and disappear. Sometimes they fall on the floor. Sometimes, like with Connery, just get dumped down into the bottom of the castle, which is falling apart. But his death is great. You know what I mean, because he gets him in a really good move where he gets him up through the chest like that. So Connery's he knows he's done, and he whips and whoosh, off comes the head. And it's just that moment you're like, oh, things just got serious because if Ramirez is dead and he's sort of like the number two seed of the of the whole of this thing, we're in real big trouble now. We still don't know where Connor went, and or is. And then, of course, the Kurgan, before leaving the building, decides to have his way with what he believes to be Ramirez's other half, even though he knows he's in Connor's castle, and he doesn't put two and two together there. Not the sharpest tool in the box, but anyway, so we don't see that; it's alluded to, but here, my pretty. Just that is just the creepiest way of saying my
Yeah,
pretty. I
he
mean,
is.
it's
He does have
art.
presence in this, but it leads to Matt, as you know, my favourite moment of the whole
Mm,
movie, as you said, with an incredible Queen soundtrack to do it. Ramirez's words come true with Heather's aging and death, and
mm,
there's this beautiful bit where we see her turn. Russell, as you said, there's a lot of things Russell puts in this movie that stolen, used, whatever, many times in later movies, and it's the her walking away from camera. She turns back to smile at him, and she's the 55, 60-year
yeah,
old Heather,
coming up the hill
and
with a
she says,
lamb.
"Yeah, why do you still, because I love you." And then we see
Mm,
her on her deathbed, and why have you stayed? Because I loved you. With that, Who Wants to Live Forever from Queen, for me, those two not only sold their undying love, it is a great sequence in the movie.
mm.
It's just, for all the women that were dragged along by their husbands or boyfriends to see Highlander, the swordplay movie, I can imagine them
Mm.
going, "Oh my God, oh my God." It's just,
Well,
I think, a really good moment.
I can imagine the boyfriend's doing the same thing as well. I mean, the thing, right? So, the Who Wants to Live Forever is probably the most devastating sequence emotionally in the 80s, outside of the E.T. ouch moment.
I'll be right here.
Power of this scene is right. You could probably put Who Wants to Live Forever over a lost trolley in a supermarket, and it would still have the same impact. You would still be going, "Oh, the trolley's." It's that powerful. It's an absolutely, her aging and death sequence. Connor watching the woman he loves grow old, like you said, when he stays the same, and I'm talking about it now, and even now, the emotional core of the entire film, and it's what drives him, I think.
Even the final framing of what is the final Highlander scene, when he uses the MacLeod sword as her monument to her grave,
Yeah.
and as he walks away, the sword with MacLeod's in the foreground with her grave. It's a perfect way to end the whole Highland sequence.
Mm.
And I think we're both in agreement. Whatever rating you would give the overall film, whatever we come up at the end, that stands as a 10 out of 10 moment
Oh,
across 80s
absolutely.
filmmaking.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, yeah. And I would ask you, the watchers who are hopefully enjoying this, what would you, is this, do you agree with us? Do you think this is the most emotional moment of an 80s film, or is there another? If you do, put it in the comments and let us know. But for now, yeah, so it ends, like I said, it ends, it's a bookmark. It's the end of the chapter of the Scottish Highlands. Like you say, that bit with the MacLeod. Because when I watched it previously, when I was a bit younger, I always wondered where his sword went. And it was only recently I clocked he used it as the headstone.
Yeah, he
Because the
used
other
it.
thing in that shot, where as he's walking off, you see him with Ramirez's sword just there, and it's almost as painful to him holding Ramirez's sword as the loss of his wife as the loss of Ramirez. It's such a clever shot. It is
Yeah.
just such a clever shot. I mean, Russell Mulcahy, he went on to do some other movies which weren't so great, but this, you know, the, you know, hats
Yeah,
off and all
and
that,
I
because
think at this point we must stress that as we've told this narrative, the one thing he does do with his music video background is this whole sequence we've just explained. Lordy, he intercuts it so often into they really do chop back and forward. Um,
yeah,
it's not like we're saying, well, he did a huge chunk of Highlander, then this. The
yeah.
reason you and I have done what we've done is he intercuts the hell out of it, doesn't he?
Mm.
Which,
Well,
when I look back, it's the one thing I wish maybe he'd left each set of scenes to breathe just that bit longer. I still like the intercutting in the narrative, but it's the rapidity of those intercuts. And as you mentioned, as we're going back to it now, the intercutting with the original wrestling sequence, you enter the wrestling, then you get this marvelous shot where they're coming over the top of the Highlands, and you think, wow,
mm.
and then he cuts straight back. You don't even see the beginning of the battle. They just come over the hill and you go, wow, and then they're gone again, and he's back to this. Then it's like,
Yeah,
I
I
just
see.
found,
I don't agree. I don't agree. I think if you played out the whole of the Highlands section first, then it wouldn't have worked like it
no,
does.
I'm not saying do that. What I'm saying is just let certain scenes just breathe a little bit longer before you cut back. There's
Oh, I
times
think
when we
that.
go, cut back,
Yeah, yeah,
cut back,
yeah.
cut back, cut back,
I think
you
that's the
know.
music director in him. He can't make it last
Yeah,
more than sort of 3 to 5 minutes
yeah,
without, because it's like, to him, it's like that's that video, that's that video, that's that, and that's how it kind of comes. It does come across like a bunch of music videos all
yeah.
put together.
But from that
Um,
wrestling, we get our very first sword fight, don't we? With
Yeah, with
what?
the Edward McCall knockoff from The Equalizer. I mean, the dude
Yeah,
turns up looking like Edward Woodward. It's just like, what's going on here? And it's a very, very again. I have a question for you guys that are watching, and or for you, if you can answer this, Malcolm. Right, the aging thing within this whole thing is so you've got Clancy Brown and you've got Christopher Lambert, who are mid 20s, late 20s. Then you have this dude roll up at the garage, who's like 40. You've got Connery, who's 50s, possibly virgin
mm.
60s. And then you've got other people who turn up throughout the film as the various people they have to fight. They're all different ages. How does that work? This film is confusing enough, and now the age thing. Do they are they born are they born adults? Do they grow to a certain point? And how? I don't get it.
I'd
I
like
don't
to
get it.
think that possibly one of the most logical answers is they stay at the age when maybe they're first killed and come back to
Mm,
life. And like
nice,
Connor was
nice.
killed, then he comes back. It makes sense because, as you said, if not, it doesn't make sense. But as I
No,
said, the thing that amazes me is, as you've rightly said about the Edward Woodward thing, the guy looks like basically he's just come from a business meeting. I know they're meant to integrate with us, and
yeah,
they're in the huge car park of the stadium. And I mean, again, Russell. really manages to utilize the whole car park and make it look like a bigger movie with the devastation that's done. Again, the swordplay, it's clunky, but he dresses it well, doesn't he? The sparks
Mm.
off the cars,
Yeah, so the
headlights
sparks,
exploding,
the,
gas
the,
coming from the pipes and everything, you know.
the sparks thing. I mean, how much do they spend on sparklers to overcut onto literally everything they touch? Just sparks. I mean, I've hit, well, not hit cars. When I've bashed the car with something, sparks don't come off. It's
No,
just, I mean, it is bonkers. I mean, and the fight itself, they predate the Dark Angel. If you remember our Dark Angel episode, we were
that's
talking about
right.
one of
Yeah.
our favourite moments was running across the top of the cars. So they do a bit of that. They run across the cars, and then out of nowhere, the end of
I
the
know
film
what you're
kicks
going to
on.
say.
He starts doing backflips down the car park, right? Now,
I knew you were going to
it's
say that.
just bizarre. He
It's when
just
he's trying to
backflips all the way
catch,
down the. No.
but Matt, it's
And
when
then
he's trying to catch Connor. Connor's
Connor's
running,
standing
so he
there with
thinks,
his
what's the
sword going,
quickest way I can catch him? And the guy stood there going, Connor's running. What's the quickest way I can catch him? Backflips.
in the other direction. He's going down the car park. Connor's standing there trying to find his sword, which he's dropped. And this dude just seems to backflip endlessly. Now, the even more ridiculous part of this, he's just backflipped to the entire end of the car park. The very next sequence, it kind of picks up the sword. The dude comes round the corner out of nowhere. I'm like, he backflipped all the way down to run all. No, I'm sorry, Mr. Mulchay, there's a lot to love in this film, but I'm sorry, this car park fight is the dumbest thing ever. It's just why. And also, can you imagine the insurance claims on all these cars that get blown up and explode?
Well,
And
that's the other thing,
because
Matt. You mentioned earlier about the what happens with the quickening, and we see the explosions. Well, once the quickening happens with this guy, as it does later when the Kurgan kills someone,
yeah,
the whole car park becomes a bomb site, doesn't it? With the
yeah,
blue lights and the
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, so all the cars are blowing up. I mean, it starts off really quite cool because it's like the lightning stuff sort of creeps along like it's this like little organism of its own, and it knocks off a hubcap, and then it creeps up, and then all the rules just go out the window, and things are getting blown up, and Connor just stands there and goes like that in the car park. Later on, he rises up into the sky. Kurgan doesn't rise up into the sky. Well, we never see Ramirez kill anybody, so don't know what happens to him. There's another point in the training montage where where um, where Connor suddenly feels the quickening for no apparent reason.
Yeah, the lightning striking him
Yeah,
and
and then he feels
multiple
that
directions. Yeah.
he hasn't killed anybody. And there's Sean Connery shouting off screen from somewhere, and probably in a voiceover they recorded, going, "This is the quickening." So this actually debunks your theory because he hasn't killed anybody at that point. Yet he's feeling the quickening and he's stopped aging because he gets killed
No,
himself.
what I thought was he stops aging when he's first killed by the Kurgan.
Oh, I see. Right, fair enough.
So the
Yeah.
first
So
time
anyway,
you
so
are killed, yeah.
yeah. Right. So
But
anyway,
now
so
I've
the
got a
quickening.
question for you. Let's
Oh no.
roll reverse here. He kills his first guy. The car park's a
Yeah.
mess. So he
Yeah.
decides in his lovely little natty sports car that he's at Le Mans and floors the pedal to the metal and is whizzing round this car park to be met by the whole of New York's armed police
Yeah. New
force. They
York
are
Police Force. Yeah.
everywhere. Get out the car. They manhandle him. They abuse him. Why are you driving so fast? Now, I imagine, Matt, they've been told something's happened at the car park. There's been a big
Yeah.
explosion. They don't know about the headless guy yet, but there's been a big explosion. Why do they happily just grab him, stop him, arrest him? No one goes on to the car park. No one goes on to see what the mess is. They've got their man. What have they got him for? Apart from
Well,
speeding.
it's quite obvious. It's America, and he's a foreigner, so they arrest him. Ooh, a
You
little bit
know,
political there, shouldn't say.
they said, you're going a bit fast there, son. What are you running away from?
Yeah.
And then they just arrest him. No one thinks, well, we'll carry on, see what the fuss was. The
Well,
next cut is him in the police station.
the other thing is who reported it, because
Exactly.
people are still in the stadium. Nobody's come out yet. There's nobody else in this car park.
Exactly. It's instant. The
And
police are there
this
instantly.
this is before a time of CCTV in and the standard it is now. It wouldn't be like remoted to a thing. It'd be recorded. So it'd be on a VHS tape, and they would have to phone it in. So yeah, who knows? It's America. Cops just well, the arresting bit I get because they're just American, but the rest of
Then
it,
the
yeah, is
next bit after the arrest, you mentioned about certain things that they say that, when you look at it in the cold light of day, during the interrogation, when they're interrogating him, they have the bit of the bust up and Connor is so cool and
yeah.
unflappable. Um, one of the coppers goes, ever been to New Jersey? Ever been to a wrestling? They arrested him there in that car park, and they're
Yeah, but
asking
it
him,
wasn't New
and he's going,
Jersey.
no, no, I haven't been, I haven't done, and then they go from asking whether he's been to this certain place to, you're an antique dealer, aren't you? So you meet this guy with a sword. So they've established that he hasn't been there. And then they
Mm.
establish that actually he's got to be the killer because he's an antique dealer who wanted the sword. The whole interrogation scene is a mess.
Yeah, so the thing about the car park before he gets to the interrogation is so he lobs his sword up into the thing to hide it because obviously he doesn't want to run out with a sword because he obviously knows he's about to get arrested. We still don't know how the call's been made, but he leaves the other guy's sword on the floor. I mean, which is very sloppy when you think about it, really. And how did that guy hide that sword? It was huge with the big
It was,
thing
yeah,
around
the
his.
huge ornate handle, everything.
Nobody just noticed this equalizer-looking dude wandering around with a giant. Anyway, but yeah, so and the thing about him hitting the pillar as well and leaving shards of this sword, right, in the thing. There is not one single scratch on this sword because it's been pressed 4,000 times, as we're told. It's like the perfect, samurai sword. So it
And
doesn't
this
leave
is the
any
thing as well,
trace.
Matt. Now you've mentioned that as well, which leads to the other contrivance that's a bit hard to swallow. He's got to have a modern love interest.
Ah,
And
yes.
it's a
Well,
police officer that it happens to be top of the class in forensics. And
well, she does say she's not a police officer. She's an antiques collector who helps the police. She does make that
yeah,
justification later on. Yeah, go on, carry on. Sorry, interrupted.
and she just happens to be called in and recognizes the sword. And it's a contrivance. Again, once we start this, and of course, he nonchalantly, they can't hold him. All they can hold him for is speeding from the scene of what possibly is a crime, and that um, was he there or wasn't he there? And then we slowly start to fill in the gaps about how long. I do like his pad. I do like his antiques pad. The idea that he's nostalgic about his history. The pad is cool, you know.
Yeah, in his antiques building. Right now, this is interesting because I was sitting there watching it when I rewatched. I rewatched it as I told Malcolm earlier off screen. I watch films several. We watch the same film several times before we put these episodes together. We don't just do it all out of memory. I know it makes sometimes wonder, but we don't. Um, when I was rewatching this last night. It gave me Batman vibes, the whole film, because that's like his Batcave. He's like this secret, guy who's technically got a dual identity because he takes on, the names as we find out later on of children that have died in birth. And he's running around sort of not quite, saving the city, but he's like this secret, millionaire who's running around doing all this stuff. And then he's got this hidden cave or room in his antique shop which he just sits in morosely looking at the walls and remembering stories, looks at the fish and remembers being underwater, looks at, so yeah, but as far as the romance bit goes, I mean, the romance subplot is basically there, so Connor has a reason not to just let the Kurgan win and call it a day after 400 years, which I suppose is fair enough. I mean, because he does look particularly bored at some points of all of it. It's just like, let the Kurgan win. But anyway, yes, we're jumping ahead again. The other thing I want to note about this, because she goes into her police office, right, which looks like a warehouse with some of those prefab walls put up. I mean, and it quite clearly is because we see a hospital later on, which has got the same prefab walls. It's obviously the same building, just a separate. They've built the set all in one place, clearly, but it's really poorly done because it just does not. It looks like a mobile police office, not a real one. So it is, it works. It works. So, but the forensic subplot with Brenda, who is played by Roxanne Hart, tries to give it a detective thriller layer, I suppose. She's analysing the Sorg fragment, and, again, now we've lost Sean Connery because he's had his head chopped off. You need somebody else to do the exposition. So she's doing the
Yeah,
modern day drip feed because she's the one who does the investigating and finds the names and and discover. And so the things go on in New York, and she ends up having dinner with Connor MacLeod.
Good evening.
Because she's interested in him and his sword. I'm like, yeah, I bet you are. So she hides a gun and a tape recorder in her drawers in her room, and with some kind of superpower, Connor comes in, knows exactly where they are, and knows there's a bloke outside without even looking, and thinks she's setting him up. And then they have this sort of, they don't even have dinner. She invites him to dinner and they don't eat dinner. They just, he comes in and wanders around the room. They have an argument. Off you go. Next thing you know, they're having a romance, right? So and he just goes to, oh yeah, by the way, I'm an immortal, because he brings her to the antique show. He goes, I'm an immortal, you can't kill me. Then grabs a knife, stabs himself in front of her to prove the fact that he can't die. I mean, to me, I really wanted to go, and a bit like the battle at the beginning on the Highlands, it did seem a little bit Monty Python-esque at times. I almost wanted to go, it's only a flesh wound, but anyway, that's for another day. Anyway, so he stabs himself in this sequence, and and she realized, oh, he can't die. He's telling me the truth. So she sleeps with him, and I'm like, okay, this is not just a little bit weird. You're now, he's just told you he's immortal. He's he's just stabbed himself in front of you. You're now sleeping with him, and then the very next sequence is them at a zoo, and she dumps him and wanders off, and that leads into the finale. But
Yeah, I mean that's the
well,
you've hit on one
we
of the
have
two
jumped a bit.
threads
We'll have to come back, but
that's all right though. No, we don't even need to go back, Matt, because you've hit on one of the two threads that drives the narrative of the modern one is her finding out about him, tracing, looking at the all the evidence, and finally him having to admit to her that he is immortal, that he's Connor MacLeod from the Cam MacLeod. He says all this, and the other thread is the emergence in this time frame of the Kurgan, which is, where we are really waiting for, because this Kurgan is the punk Kurgan that says, I'm going to have fun for the rest of this film now. I'm going to chew everything in sight. I'm dressed like a punk, and he's going to chase Connor. But there's a couple of things I want to allude to is the morose bit that you said. There's a nice little bit with his secretary, personal assistant,
mm,
who we
yeah,
realise he has not had an affair with. He will not
Rachel, yeah.
make love to Rachel because he rescued her as a little girl in World War II Germany. One of two fantastic little throwbacks to his longevity, where he saves her from the Nazis. And it just
With the
lets
brilliant
us,
line of "It's a kind of magic." With that, really,
yeah,
it's the way he says it. I actually quite like that Scottish kind of French thing. It's a kind of magic. I just like the way he says it.
Why didn't you die?
It's a kind of magic.
It's literally, you look at that and go, that should be the end shot of the trailer, and they never used it.
of the
It's
yeah,
literally
and also he's got
that is the end shot of the trailer.
and he's got that whatever you
Cool.
say, Jack, you're the master
Yeah,
race,
Erst musst du mich erschießen. Whatever you say, Jack. You're the master race.
So it's a
yeah,
great
it's
sequence,
brilliant.
but it serves a purpose. It lets us know that he's looked after her. She knows about him. She's aging, but he hasn't got romantically involved. So it does fit in nicely with your idea that he's lost his love for life. I think the girl says to him, then you're too frightened to love. That's your problem. You're too frightened to do this. You're too frightened to live, even though you're an immortal. And then you've got the Kurgan hunting him down. Now, it leads to two things that one I think is great, and the other really bothers me is um, the arrival of like an African prince who's they meet on a
Oh
bridge, and
yeah,
again, rather
on
than
the
just chop
bridge.
each other's heads off, they sort of like go, "Hey, are we cool? Yeah, let's go
Yeah,
party.
and
Let's do this.
let's
Let's do
pull out
that."
coffee cups. Yeah,
And then he says to him, "Do you remember the last time we partied?" I'll let you do this, Matt, because I know how much you like this scene as well. To me, alongside Heather's aging and death, this is so intentionally funny, and it's great to watch. And you mentioned Monty Python before. He
yeah.
plays it like Monty Python.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
absolutely. I mean, so they're on the bridge chatting, and they both. Well, I think Connor's brought coffee, and the other guy's brought alcohol. And like you said, they should just chop each other's heads off. But this is the notes part. This is where they're comparing who's left, and we realise at this point this is the semi-final. There are only four of them left at this point. So there's the duties that the Kurgan's going to kill in the alleyway. There's the African. There's Connor and the Kurgan. So yeah, there's four left. So Kurgan has killed 90% of the people. We've not actually seen Connor kill anyone other than the dude in the car park, right? So, although he seems to have a list of all these people he killed, we don't know how many people the Africans killed, and the dude left in the car park. Now, the idea is that the quickening. Before I get to this really great scene, so the quickening is they allude to that you absorb the powers of all the people you kill. So, you know, they should all be like "Bah, bah," by now. Side point. Anyway, so this then leads to a story where it is set back in period time, in Bridgerton times, shall we say, where
Yes.
young Connor has got himself drunk and has called his this other guy he know his wife a rather Monty Python-esque name. I mean, it's almost son of a motherless goat kind of line. It's not quite that. And so he's in a duel, and the guy's got a sword, and the guy keeps stabbing him, and he keeps getting up. And the other guy is getting so frustrated, and then and Connor just his wig gets turned round so he can't see. And he goes, "Ah, I can't see," which is a bit of an in joke because actually, uh,
Christopher
what's his face?
Lambert.
Christopher Lambert. Why do I keep forgetting his name? Christopher Lambert actually is very short-sighted, so and he had to wear really, really strong contact lenses for the film, which is very worrying, especially if you're a stunt direct guy and you're
Performer
doing it
with him,
because
yeah.
this guy can't see you and he's swinging a sword about and doing all this stuff, but he can't actually see you. Kind of scary. Anyway, so he keeps stabbing it and he just apologizes and falls off down the hill. And then the guy is so frustrated, he shoots his assistant with a musket and the guy just falls in the camera like that. And in all of this violence and nonsense because the scene just previous to that is the Kurgan killing this dude in an alleyway quite violently, and then this vigilante coming in and shooting him with a machine gun, and the Kurgan stabs the vigilante guy and lifts him up on the sword, holds him there, and then just flings him away. Fantastically, this guy, despite getting a sword through the stomach, doesn't die. He actually makes it to hospital to go on a complete rant to the police, and the police are expecting it to be Connor, and it's not. So he has to scrub. Anyway, all those details in this same part of the police building that's meant to look different, but actually it's the same sliding door.
But
Anyway,
Matt, here's the thing about you mentioned about, the semi-finals. When you
yeah,
have Ramirez back in the day saying, and it's all going to go to the gathering. Think of the
mhm.
term the gathering.
Yeah,
And
four
you've
people,
got the opportunity,
five.
exactly, you've got the opportunity for all these incredible, if like something out the Warriors or all throughout history, whatever they decided to look like. And actually it ends up like four people and you're like, oh, that's the gathering now. And that is one of the failings I found, but it's as I said, it leads to another one of my favorite moments is Connor and the Kurgan meet in the church. It's great for
Mm.
their meeting, but it's also for the great way that the Kurgan shows how evil he is by having no respect. Because Ramirez says earlier, isn't it, the only place we don't fight is in the sanctity of the church. And although the Kurgan respects that, he shows he doesn't respect anything else about the church. On its own, it's a
I
wonderful
mean,
little scene.
yeah, I mean, so right, so let me get this straight, okay? So immortals wander the earth for centuries, right? We don't know how long, they've just been there for centuries, there's no explanation. Um, they can't die unless you cut their heads off. Now, when you do, lightning explodes everywhere, you absorb the power. Sometimes you float in the air, sometimes you don't, sometimes the other body floats in the air, sometimes it doesn't. But you can't fight on holy ground.
I
No
know, I
explanation for
know.
why not. It, I mean, and that's the other thing. So at the end of this meeting, where the Kurgan reveals that he attacked Ramirez's wife, and then realizes that it's actually Heather, and that she never told him, and he gets really angry, and he grabs him by the throat, and he's all careful, Highlander, and he goes, "I'll wait for you outside." Storms off outside. So within a minute, the Kurgan gets thrown out by the priest who says you're scaring everybody and all this kind of stuff. And the licking hand, which is one of the most
Yeah,
terrifyingly disgusting things. Yeah, yeah, it still bothers me when he does it. It's just, and you know full well that like you alluded to earlier, he just did that off the cuff. That wasn't even
yeah,
probably scripted. He just went for it because he didn't care. He then walks outside the front of the building. Well, Connor's not there. He
no.
said, "Is Mr. Tough Guy, Mr. Internet Tough Guy, going? I'll wait for you outside," and then isn't there because he's gone back to his antiques thing to
But I take
basically
it,
hand it.
being blunt, Matt, we've got to find a way to bring Roxanne Hart into the finale,
Well,
haven't
this is it. I mean, yeah. I mean, come on. I mean, we've got to get to this the whole final battle thing. So he kidnaps. And now, see, now this bothered me actually, right? So he then knows where she lives for starters, which is pretty clever in the 80s because he'd have to do the whole
we?
Terminator
Yeah.
thing and look for a phone book, and he doesn't even know her name. So and he couldn't have followed her because she wasn't with Connor at the time. So it's pretty clever how he finds her. But he's upstairs in this apartment block where she goes in. She's walking in. She drops her books on the floor and just tries to open the door, and obviously does the struggling door thing. And she gets inside the door. Now the Kurgan isn't exactly chasing her down the stairs. He's just sort of standing there going. So there's a huge dude who she knows is also immortal, who is waiting to get Connor to chop his head off, and she's hiding behind a little door. Why didn't she run out of the building? It would have been far safer. She could have got away, right? But no, she waits in the building. He smashes the door down, grabs her, and in the second car sequence, which we also haven't mentioned, the Kurgan has this thing for stealing cars with women in them, and again, a really bizarre edit. After he kills the guy in the alleyway, he steals his car, and the woman's still in it. Who called mummy, and then he drives off with her. She stands up, right, screaming, which is, an entirely dumb thing to do because
Yeah.
usually that's what you kind of expect. So he drives out and comes round the corner, right? And in this edit, she's standing up screaming. And as he comes round the corner, she's on the front of the car, facing the wrong way round, going, I don't know how she fell because you can't, if you fall forwards, your head's going to be down. She must have done like a
And your feet are, yeah, yeah.
I don't. That was weird. Anyway, besides the point. But anyway, so he's then taken the car again, and he's got what's her face in the car with him, and Brenda, and he's driving like a psycho, fancy a game of chicken, and of course he's dodging the cars because he can't die, and she's screaming a plate. Now her screaming, oh my days, it goes on for like 10 minutes, and I'm like, ugh, like her screaming is incessant. Oh mate. So yeah. So anyway, so we
But Matt,
we
what
get
what
to
about the choice of where the final fight is, where the Kurgan ties her up? I look at that and I go, really? You know, for a guy that wields a sword, I think one of the things you look about for sword players and enough space to sort of wield your sword nicely and make a good clean kill. And instead, it's on like this signage, like the old Hollywood sign. That's all. I know it's neon, it's lit up, it looks great. But for me, I just couldn't. I could see it as just one of the worst places you would want to try and fight a smaller, nimble bloke in a sword fight.
well, yeah. I mean, yeah, the whole thing's bizarre. So he ties Brenda to the top of a silver cup sign on top of this building. I believe it's quite famous, or at the time it was. It was quite well known. Anyway, so he ties her up there. He's hiding. Connor knows where to go. He gets to the rooftop. Okay, so the Kurgan's hiding. Brenda's on top of this sign, and it's really quite bonkers because then they start fighting. Now the Kurgan doesn't start having a go at Connor. He starts chopping at the sign, so all the letters start falling
Mm.
off. He then knocks over a water tower, so there's water everywhere. Which, if you think about the quickening, is probably pretty dangerous because there's electricity involved and water. It's probably not smart. And so there's water and stuff going everywhere. She's screaming. He's chopping the sign down there. Sparklers going off, and you know, uh, sign crashing, water sparks, the swords everywhere. This whole sequence is as bonkers as the accents in this film, right? It's just all over the place. Then all of a sudden the roof collapses because they've been chopping about, and they fall through. The sign does, and they do. Brenda falls. No one really hurts themselves on this fall. It looks like
No,
quite a hefty fall. Um, I mean, I know they're immortal and stuff, and it still looks like. But Brenda's okay. So anyway, so then they go into full music video mode where you've got the backlights, the big windows, the purple light coming through, and it does look really cool.
silhouettes.
Yeah, the silhouettes. The sword fight is really cool at this point. And so the shadowy sword play is going on, and ding ding ding. There's a little bit where you think Brenda's going to get it, and then Connor comes back, and then what? Off comes Kurgan's head. Well, it falls back. It's like he's. I could have got you, crazy kids, reveal with a mask thing. Um, you know. So yeah. So we've got to this point, right? So at this point in the movie has given us centuries of sword fights. Okay, we've had exploding stuff. We've got churches. We've got immortal warriors, lightning storms ripping through New York City. You've got all of this going on. And still, somehow the most unbelievable thing in the film is still the accents. But again, side point, his head's come off, right? And basically, we now, instead of getting like the lightning effect, we get this weird cartoony effect. It looks like something out of the Black Cauldron, Disney Black Cauldron. And he then he does the arm, drops the sword, does the arms thing, windows explode. He gets lifted by two harness cables, which to this day, despite having all the, the 4K version, they could have digitized it all out. You can see him clearly lifted up on these two harness cables, him doing lightning going everywhere, and he falls down. And that's basically it. And you're like, well, that's a bit of a waste. What? Where was the big
I'm
kind of like,
sure in that, when he's going
ready
up and all
Brett
the
glow
Black
or
Cauldron
something?
stuff and all the
Yeah,
Black Cauldron stuff's going on. The thing, I'm
yeah,
sure during that period, because he's spinning, isn't he, on the two cables, and I'm
yeah.
sure, unless, like, as you said, it's so bonkers, I imagined it. But when you were kids, when you did a cannonball into the water at a swimming pool, I'm sure there's a bit there where it turns he's spinning, he's holding his knees as he goes round,
Yeah,
and you're just like, what? You know. But here's
it
the
is. Yeah,
biggest
and
problem I have with the whole film, Matt, is the whole
the
point of the
accents.
film is no, no, you've got to live with that, or it's just pointless. The whole point is that there will only be one. We've had this hammered home, and that it is so important that the one gets the reward. Now, I can understand an element of the reward. You get to be human. You get to know what it's like to have the fears, the loves, the aging, that time is important to you, and that time is something that will run away from you. So really, really, truly live this time. And then they throw in the fact that, oh, by the way, you're going to hear every single person in the
Only
world's
if you really
thoughts.
concentrate. No, he does say if I
If you
really
can't, and
concentrate.
I felt like saying, "Who wants that? What's that got to do with being mortal?" The whole point of winning is you become human. Except you're going to hear everyone. I mean, after watching her act, I don't even want to just hear all that she's thinking, let alone everybody else in the whole world. And that's what you win. For
Yeah,
me,
exactly.
it was
Not good.
a deflating the balloon moment. I liked the thought of, do you know what your reward is, to actually die a decent death and live your life while you can and enjoy it and savor it for what it really is. No,
Yeah.
they tack that onto the end, and you think, who would want that? If you focus, you can hear absolutely everyone. No, thank you.
Well, there's a couple of things that you mentioned that I need to bring up. So, I mean, firstly, where he finds out the bit about the voices, like I said, the bit that's tacked on is they've gone back to the Highlands and they're doing the rolling Highlands thing. And just to let you know, it's today. They have a random fighter jet just fly through the scene, just so
Yeah,
you're
flies
aware that
over the top.
it is the 80s. We're not back in the thing. But the thing that I actually think is actually really quite disturbing is where they are. There's him and there's Brenda, and they're being all romantic and lovey-dovey literally on the burial site of his wife. They're literally on the mound where he left the swords. And I'm like, yeah, not sure I'm doing that. So
And
yeah,
knowing that he can read minds, she's there thinking,
yeah, exactly.
is he thinking of her while he's doing it with me? And he'll,
Well, yeah, yeah,
it's, to me,
that's,
it was a cop out, Matt. As I said, I liked the romantic ideal of live while you can, but to chuck that
yeah,
on the end. But we
yeah, I know.
know it wasn't actually end, because we had the debacle that was
Well,
Highlander 2 that says all of this was absolute rubbish.
yeah, well,
None of this was true.
the less said about the sequels, the better. Let's be honest. I mean, the film in its own tagline told us there
There
should be
can be
only
only
one.
one.
There should have
Yeah,
only been one. I tell you, Highlander
yeah,
2 is so bad, like so bad. The Quickening, right? When I first saw it, I thought, "Oh, this is quite good," but then I realised I saw the Quickening before I saw the original Highlander. I don't know how that
yeah,
happened, but
yeah,
so I thought it was quite good. But even there's a director's cut. I mean, Mulchay came back and there's a director's cut, and of the second one. And the second one, even with a director's cut, still makes less sense than this film, including the accents.
yeah, yeah.
It's just, and the third one's just terrible. And then they did a TV series, and then they had Highlander Endgame. Um, Look, for those of you who are watching, if you like the sequels, let us know. But if you've never seen the sequels, take a
Don't.
piece of advice. Don't. All right, they need to have them locked off as well. The sequels are truly terrible. I mean, for me, it's a bit like when it comes to the Indiana Jones films. As far as I'm concerned, there are only three Indiana Jones films,
Yeah,
and there's only three Die Hard films. After that, those films don't exist. They're just standalone action films that have nothing to do with the originals, just happen to have the same character names. It, they are honestly, Highlander 2 is bad, and I thought, oh, is it just bad? And I just remember it like that. No, they're bad.
No, it's
They're
bad.
really bad. They're really bad. They managed to bring Ramirez back for about 30 seconds for no reason other than to give him a sword, which he doesn't give him, and he already had. And let's not get into the sequels too
Well,
much,
one
otherwise,
final word on that film, Matt. It's beyond bad
yeah,
because it is just a genuine cash grab. Well, I know everybody's done it, but it is one of those films that is just a cash grab because they knew they had to rewrite, and there's no pun intended here, their whole canon of that first movie
yeah,
to even have the sequel. And
yeah.
I'm
They
not spoiling it for anyone because you can't spoil it anymore. They weren't immortals, they were aliens.
yeah,
And
they were
that's how you
aliens
could
from
get
another
away with
planet,
totally
but they had their
rewriting it from
memories
them.
wiped before they went to Earth.
I wish I
Yeah.
had, but no, I can still remember the film.
Yeah. Anyway, so enough of the sequels. What we would say to you is don't watch them. And if you do, that's entirely on you. We cannot be held responsible.
No.
Yeah. So we've got to let's get back onto Highlander. I mean, one thing's for certain. I mean, only a film like Highlander could be this ridiculous and still feel like an absolute legend of a movie. So,
Mm.
yeah. So all in all, this is where we're at. Highlander is bonkers. The accents are even more bonkers. The entire film doesn't make sense, uh, and it's got some really ridiculous scenes in it. Some stuff that just doesn't add up. Some stuff that doesn't make sense, but it's still really good.
I,
What
I
is your
agree with that,
cheddar
Matt.
rating, Mister Malcolm?
Well, my cheddar rating is I think Russell manages to integrate those into a really enjoyable film, stylistically, artistically, whatever way you want to look at it. And overall, I fondly rewatch this as a good solid seven. Regularly, I would
Well,
rewatch this as a good solid seven.
it's
Maybe even
almost like
pushing
a.
to an eight.
I wouldn't go that far. Um, I actually had seven on my head. It's a
Yeah,
solid seven for me. I mean, it's not it's not top tier, and it's certainly not it's not Commando, it's not Roadhouse, it's not RoboCop. It's not that good, but it is solid, and it is better than Mark for Death, Dark Angel, and you can see those films actually took elements of this film.
and
Yeah,
do you know
I've
what,
just thought
Matt?
about that.
If
Mark for Death did the whole. There can only be one, except there were two.
except there were two of them. If
Yeah,
the sword play, the actual sword play sequences, had been of a level of the sort of stuff you were seeing from Donnie Yen in the same
yeah.
time frame, or some of the Japanese movies, some of the Hong Kong movies that included swordplay. If the swordplay had been of that level, I'd have been up eight, eight and a half. But it
Yeah,
was very much stage school swordplay. But still, seven I think is a good solid rating.
yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, yeah, it's not terrible, and everybody does actually really like it.
Mm,
So, I mean, you speak to anybody from the 80s, Highlander, I mean, it bombed massively in the cinemas. I think it only did like 12 million in the cinemas, but it found life on VHS. That's where everybody saw it, VHS and obviously then DVD. So yeah, it did really badly, but like the film itself is pretty much immortal. I mean, it's gone
mm.
on, it's often quoted, often, rewatched by everybody. And all round, Mulcahy, it is Mulcahy, probably Mulcahy's best movie, if we're gonna, come down to it. Um, so yeah, I mean, like we said, it's a solid seven. Ignore the sequels because they were no good. And as a standalone film, it is the epitome of a VH. When I used to go to the video store, and I know you used to work in one.
Own
I
one,
used to
yeah.
work. You own one. I used to work in one as well. One of those. There were certain films on the shelves that. In because of the cover, the green cover with the sword and the Highlander bit in red, and that was always on the shelf alongside things like Back 21. There's one for movie lovers if you
Mm,
really know your films.
yeah.
It was just one of those covers that was just it was always there. Firefox is another one. It's always just there on the shelves. And Highlander was one that was always had the rented out thing stuck into it, so you couldn't
Yeah, the
actually
little
rent it.
tabs, yeah.
Yeah, the little tabs. So yeah, Highlander is immortal, and it is a seven. So there we have it, everybody. There is our verdict on Highlander. And if you agree or disagree, once again, let us know in the comment. Now, don't forget to subscribe. But before we go, Mr. Malcolm Martin, I suppose we better let everybody know what's happening next time.
Oh,
So,
lordy, lordy.
oh, lordy, lordy, lordy. So, speaking of swords and questionable creative decisions, we're staying in that sword and sorcery lane for next time. And we are going to be dealing with a film where Arnold Schwarzenegger somehow isn't playing Conan, but is basically playing Conan. And Bridget Nielsen got the lead after a 15-minute meeting, and it shows. And where the director of the first two Conan films came back and made something that Arnold himself said was one of the worst films he's ever been in. He is wrong, by the way. It's not the worst thing he's ever been in. And if you don't know yet, the film is Red Sonja. We will see you next time. And remember, get to the cheddar.